Alrighty then. We are Medical Medium Cleanse to Heal, chapter 7, I think. Fermented foods. Oh, yeah, Troublemaker Foods, level 4. Fermented foods, including kombucha, sauerkraut, and coconut amino is one of my favorites. Based on the popularity of fermented foods, you would think that anything fermented is good for us. That's not the case. Fermentation is not a healing technique. It's a survival technique that was developed back in the day to preserve food. Consider yogurt. Most yogurt is a dairy product, and all dairy feeds viruses and unproductive bacteria, the very source behind so much chronic illness. Keep in mind that it's only a theory that the microorganisms in yogurt are beneficial. The damage done by dairy itself, even if it's raw, unpasteurized yogurt, outweighs any theoretical benefits. The dairy protein and lactose feed the bugs causing your symptoms. Just because you don't have symptoms right now doesn't mean you won't develop them down the road. With yogurt feeding the sleeping giants such as Epstein-Barr virus or unproductive bacteria that you don't realize are inside of your body. Non-dairy yogurts such as coconut yogurt and oat milk yogurt don't solve the issue. Again, fermentation itself is not a healing technique. More in a moment. Any kind of fermented meat or fermented animal flesh product should be avoided at all costs. The microorganisms on animal flesh are the microorganisms of death. They're part of the decaying process when the animal dies. They develop or arrive on the scene to break down the carcass, and they thrive on rotting flesh. These are not healthy microorganisms for a healthy gut. Out of all the fermented foods, fermented vegetables and herbs such as kimchi, oh my God, I love that, and sauerkraut are the most beneficial in the sense that they don't harbor the same microorganisms that reside on decaying flesh. These microorganisms from decaying plant matter are more agreeable and healthier and not as offensive to our bodies. They're still not the right kind of microorganisms for cleansing and healing. What type of microorganisms we take into our body makes a big difference. There are millions of beneficial microorganisms inside of each of us. None of them are the ones sitting on a fermented vegetable. So while at least we could receive a benefit from the nutrients in the vegetable that's fermented, it's not enough benefit to warrant filling every meal with fermented vegetables. We only get so many meals in our lifetime, and each one is critically important to our health. You'll be much better off eating some raw basil, spinach, or mache that you will be filling your plate with fermented cabbage or other fermented vegetables. That's because the good microorganisms inside you feed and thrive on herbs such as basil and celery juice. They thrive on leafy greens such as arugula, lettuces, kale, and spinach. And they thrive on fresh, raw vegetables such as cauliflower and fruits such as apples. Those are fresh, keyword, because I be buying the frozen, hello. Those are the beneficial microorganisms we're supposedly trying to replace when we eat fermented foods. In reality, fermented foods aren't doing the job we believe they are. They're not choice foods for the healthy microorganisms that reside in our body. The true goal is to feed the healthy microorganisms inside of our gut with the foods our body really wants. And you just saw a partial list of what those foods are. This is why people have remarkable life-changing results from drinking celery juice versus kombucha tea. There are millions of people globally drinking celery juice and receiving benefits they've never experienced from other modalities they've tried. They can drink kombucha tea for a month straight and never receive any benefits to relieve their chronic illness. Meanwhile, you can drink celery juice for a month straight and see the healing difference. Yeah, like for me, my cat allergies went away. I'm 32 years old, and a month after the celery juice, I had cat allergies because I just got a cat. Well, I've always had cat allergies. And I did it for a month. It was kind of like on and off. Like I stopped after the 3 weeks, and then but then right after I stopped, the allergies came back. So I just did it for another week, and after that, I haven't had them. So I'm thinking about doing it on and off, like every 3 months, do it for a month or do it for 2 weeks, or I haven't decided yet. All right. Meanwhile, you can drink celery juice. Oh, yeah. Celery juice not only addresses the pathogens such as over 60 varieties of Epstein-Barr virus and over 50 groups of streptococcus bacteria behind chronic illness, it also feeds good bacteria, creating your healthiest intestinal environment as a perk. The only reason that some people who are sick with chronic illness seem to benefit from eating fermented foods is because they've gotten rid of troublemaker foods from their diet at the same time. People tend to make choices for their health all at once. So while they're bringing in fermented foods because they've heard that would help their microbiome, they're cutting out gluten and limiting cheese too. And it was the removal of gluten and lowering of dairy that helped them feel better. The minute you stop eating greasy fast foods, you're going to see the benefits. Adding fermented foods and even other similar changes at the same time are not going to be enough to heal, though. As you discovered in chapter 4, what about the microbiome? When someone is sick, the microbiome is not the real problem. Eating fermented foods to fix your microbiome will neither fix your microbiome for all the reasons you just read about, nor fix your health. The real problems are much deeper, and that's what the cleanses in this book and these videos, I'm reading it to you, are here to address. Fermented foods have been around for centuries. We've had fermented foods within the healing community for years, and they become particularly popular in Western culture in the 1960s and 70s. They never fixed our health. Chronic illness has exploded worldwide in past decades. Foods have not been an answer. No one has had a chronic illness alleviated because of them. It's like we're backtracking when we bring fermented foods and the microbiome into the health conversation. All it does is support old theories that never got anyone better in the first place. It's a constant reignition of an old theory with a new name, convincing people to try an approach that was never the answer. Fermented foods don't address the toxic heavy metals from vaccines, behind chronic illnesses or the viruses behind health struggles such as lupus and fatigue. It's like the world of chronic illness is a swampy pond of misinformation. Whenever you try to escape the swamp and start to find the truth and the real answers, for example, that pathogens that pathogens are behind chronic illness, a ghoul jumps out of the pond, grabs your ankle, and tries to pull you in, telling you that the real reason you're sick is that you're eating lectins, or you're missing collagen, or your microbiome is off, and you need fermented food, and it's all in your head, or you created your illness through bad thoughts, or your body is attacking itself with an autoimmune response. If you don't grab onto the answers in this and every other medical medium book, if you don't fight for the truth, the ghoul will constantly try to pull you back through the mud and into the haunted swamp of misinformation, where you'll be forced to swim with everyone else along with the ghouls and pond monsters. Dun dun dun!